Welcome back, everyone. It's been a while. This is episode 21 of season 1 of CBB Review's flagship podcast. This is the review. I am the beardless Brendon Hodges, shaved it off this weekend in the middle of watching college basketball and realizing it was too scraggly and dry to save, and we're starting over. It's a new era. I understand that some of you may be upset because you're not supposed to shave a playoff beard until your team's knocked out of the playoffs. Unfortunately, I don't have a college basketball team, so the rules don't apply to me. I'm flying solo today. Everyone review is very busy, CBB review is very busy covering conference tournaments along with the preliminary findings from the NCAA tournament. We've seen teams clinch their automatic conference bids. And now questions remain as to who will not get in or get in via a at-large bid. Looking at the Belmonts and the Drakes of the world who lost in their conference championships and now have to wait it out and sweat it out until Selection Sunday, which is this upcoming Sunday. It's exciting, guys, because the NCAA tournament is one of the best, if not the best, sporting events in the entire world. I will argue that till the day I die, and most of the guys that work on the website would argue that as well. They all have favorite teams they're rooting for to get in. Some of them are going to be disappointed this year, unfortunately, but it is what it is, guys. And as we head to the tournament, we continue our conference tournament preview, and I will do the best that I can to be as analytical about it as the other guys have been. Today it makes it a lot harder too, because today we're going through the final 6 conference tournament previews, and they're the big ones, like really big, anything from the Big East to the SEC. We're talking those today. I'll have the best and worst of the weekend from you. I will not have a 3-point play because I make it up, and if I did the 3-point play myself, it wouldn't be very fair because I know all the answers, right? But let's get right into it, and there's no particular order that these are in. Besides, this is who these conferences are in the order of how I think of them in terms of not quality of play, but of level of competition within them. So it may ruffle some feathers for the boss man, Matt Majinski, that I put the Big East first up in terms of a conference preview. And it's odd to say this, but while Villanova is the favorite, I think that may be the team that I'm the least confident in terms of a number 1 seed winning their conference tournament. That may just be me. But having watched Big East games with, again, the boss man and another friend of ours, Dan Baldwin, both of whom came from Big East schools, Seton Hall and Georgetown, respectively. It's a conference that I feel like anyone can beat anyone. Maybe leave DePaul out of that because I haven't watched them at all this year, and they're the lowest seeded team in this tournament. But Creighton has Marcus Zagorowski. Creighton has been consistent all year. Villanova took a tough loss to Providence, I believe is who it was, this last weekend. I saw the last-second tip-in from David Dukes, I believe is who put it in for the Friars, to beat Villanova in the final regular season game. Seton Hall has been up and down. They took a bad loss to Georgetown. I was watching that game live with both the boss man and our other classmate, Dan. So a bad loss. And then you have Yukon, which has, throughout the entirety of the season, played without James Bouknight, and now they have him back, and no one's really sure what to make of them. It's going to be an interesting tournament just because the Big East, it's one of those tournaments where teams go blow for blow with each other. It's not necessarily high scoring unless a team just has one of those nights. And they're teams that are very well coached and will grind it out every second of every minute of every half of every game. And it'll probably come down to the wire. Could I see a team like Xavier getting to the semifinal and giving a team like, I believe they would have to play They play the winner of Yukon in that 6-11 game, which would be Yukon, Providence, or DePaul. Could I see Xavier doing that? Absolutely. They've had their moments before. Could I see Georgetown or Marquette making a run? For sure. Georgetown's had their moments this year. Not too sure about Marquette, but it is what it is. Or could I see this just playing out chalk with Villanova running the table, having that bye, beating either Georgetown or Marquette, rolling through St. John's or Seton Hall? Yes, again, Seton Hall gave Villanova a run for their money earlier this season. If it wasn't for what I equated to a offensive pass interference penalty that wasn't called as a foul and kept Sandro, or let's just call him Mamu, from catching a ball cleanly and putting it in. Like, if it wasn't for that, then we'd be having a completely different discussion about Seton Hall versus Villanova and seeing Seton Hall as a viable candidate to beat them. That's just how I think of it. If I have to give a big story for this tournament, anybody can beat anybody. We just saw that. Villanova lost. I'm going to check that, actually, if Villanova lost to Providence. I'm pretty sure it was them. The Big East, yeah, Villanova lost to Providence by 2. It's even a little more interesting because Seton Hall just lost to St. John's. Now they play them in their first Big East tournament game. And so we'll see how that works on back-to-backs for them. It'll be really interesting to see how those two teams go into the their third matchup of the season now. In terms of top seeds and who's the most likely to get upset, I would say Yukon at 3, because Bouknight's still getting back into things as far as I can tell. And Providence just beat Villanova. They are flying high right now, all the confidence in the world. And they will most likely run through DePaul and run into a Yukon team that they can beat because they beat Villanova just this last Saturday. And in terms of a dark horse, I'll go with Providence. But same reason. They just beat Villanova, guys. Providence has been a dangerous team in the past, and they will continue to be that team that's like in the middle of the Big East, makes the tournament, and has the potential to go on a pretty good run into the Sweet 16. If they get lucky, maybe the Elite Eight. Those are my thoughts on the Big East. We'll move into the Pac-12, which the bracket on my rundown is very screwed up because it's the top half is on one page, the bottom half is on the other. Big story going into this tournament. The Pac-12 is actually like pretty solid, like at the top at least this year. And even some of the teams in the middle that I had kept my eye on earlier in the season and then kind of got off of as we progressed later into the season, the school year came back around and college basketball became not like secondary, but it moved down on the list a little bit. Oregon, USC, Colorado, UCLA, though, really solid top 4 seeds. I think either Oregon or USC is going to win this tournament. I think the only real contender from those first round of games, those teams that didn't get a bye, is Stanford. Those are just my thoughts on that. You can shout at me however you like in the comments. I don't care because, like I said, I'm trying to be as analytical about this as possible from a host's perspective on this podcast. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick probably. I think Oregon is probably the most actually likely to get upset. Actually, they lost to Missouri earlier in the year. Now Missouri is a solid team. I don't know if we can consider them a good or like a great or even a good team yet, because in the SEC they've been up and down. Granted, the SEC has been pretty good this year, minus a couple teams. Oregon's picked it up as of late. They held on to that 1 seed with a win last night. USC held on to the 2. I should see them both making it to the final and going blow for blow with each other. Dark horse for the tournament, though, I'll pick Stanford. It's a world of 6 seeds, guys, that we're living in. And Stanford has the talent, They have a historical pedigree of getting into the big dance and beating teams. Um, yes, Oregon and UCLA, USC have that as well. I can see Stanford getting past. I can obviously see them getting past Cal. I can see them getting past Colorado and finding their way into one of those semifinals and having a shot to go to the Pac-12 tournament and maybe cementing their place as an NCAA tournament team with those 2 wins. But I'll leave it at that for the Pac-12, and we'll go ahead and take our first break. Still to come, though, my best and worst of the weekend. Definitely want to stick around for that. Biggest stories from this last weekend, most of which are revolving around Iowa for obvious reasons. We saw the Wooden Award late season top 15 come out. We saw a number retirement. We'll cover that in a minute. And, we won't have... I'll pick, I guess, my winners I'm picking the winners for the tournaments as we go along, but I'll reiterate those as we move on here on the review. Back on the review, Brendon Hodges flying solo today. I figured I'd say this right now. Sam Bass couldn't make it on today, but he had some shade to throw at me this last weekend. I don't remember who he retweeted, but he tagged me, and I think it might have been his article about the Missouri Valley, and he said, "I'm running with Drake at BT Hodges play-by-play. Follow me on Twitter if you get the chance." And I was pulling for Drake. I really was, because them and Loyola split their season series. Granted, the Loyola win was lopsided. They split their season series, and I figured if Drake could beat them in the MVC tournament, they would both get in. Is that a possibility now? Maybe. I guess we'll just have to find out. We'll move on, though, here in the B block of episode 21 of the review. It'll be a shorter episode today because I'm all by my lonesome. But we do have the biggest stories in college hoops since we last saw you, and we'll start with the national ballot for the John Wooden Award, Best Player in College Basketball. Awarded, it was revealed Saturday. 15 players were on this late season top 15 list. First off, on the women's side, shout out Paige Beckers, only freshman on the women's top 15 list. Congratulations. You've had a heck of a season. We are big fans at the review, and we'd love to interview you sometime if you would like to grace us with your presence. On the men's side, though, top 15 are as follows. You got Western Kentucky's Charles Bassey, Baylor's Jared Butler, Kofi Coburn from Illinois, along with his teammate Ayo Dosunmu. Cade Cunningham has to be on there. And we'll probably get to the tournament, even though Oklahoma State has at least as a postseason ban right now. They're appealing that, and I've heard that it looks like they may get to the tournament anyway, which would be very exciting for Oklahoma State fans and for the Big 12 to have a star like that in the tournament. You got Luka Garza on there. Obviously, he's the favorite, has been all year, and he's shown why. He showed why again not last night, on Saturday. Colin Gillespie and Jeremiah Robinson Earl are in there for Villanova, Trace Jackson Davis, EJ Liddell, Evan Mobley. Then you have 3 Gonzaga Bulldogs, the big 3, Corey Kispert, Jalen. And it's a heck of a list. I don't know. I would have asked panelists if they were here, who would you take off this list and who would you replace it with? Because it's just that hard a question, guys. These players are the best, and maybe there's one other guy that you could throw in there that is just, I have never heard of before, and I was going to leave that up to the panelists. They're not here, so I'm not even going to try to replace somebody on that list. And it wasn't all the good, Luka Garza being on that list wasn't all the good news that he got this weekend. First off, they won again. They beat Wisconsin close. It was a close game, 77-73. Immediately following that, obviously last Big Ten game of the season, senior night, or senior day, I guess you could call it, Garza learned that immediately following the end of this season, his number 55 will be up in the rafters at Iowa. Retired in perpetuity is what they said, quote for quote. Garza has been a steady force for Iowa for the past 4 years. 18 points, 7 rebounds a game over the course of his career. He built himself into one of the most dominant players in college basketball today. Will that translate to the next level? I have no idea. I really don't. And you see some players who were great in college that just never translated to the pros, and that's okay. Like, it's fine. You can be a role player in the pros having been a great player in college. Will people say you're a bust? I don't know. But congratulations to Luka Garza. You had a really good weekend. So happy for the guy. It's like I've met him before. I haven't. But probably the leading candidate for the Wooden, and I think that we can say for certain that his team will be in the mix in the Big Ten tournament and late in the NCAA tournament as well. We'll move on, though, to a different sort of tournament, the ACC tournament. And usually I would put this, in a normal year, I feel like I would put this way, way further in the episode as like the close, right? Unfortunately, the ACC has not been as good as we all thought it was going to be this year. And you can see that by the fact that Duke and Wake Forest are both playing at the same time. They're playing in that first round. I'm going to start with my dark horse for this tournament. And this is going to sound homerish because I am a graduate student at this wonderful academic institution. But Syracuse, despite all their lumps they've taken this season, have been slowly turning things on. I was watching, I believe this was Syracuse playing against Clemson, their final game in the Dome this year. And Alan Griffin, I want to say that Syracuse scored 25 points in the first half. And then Alan Griffin alone had like 12 in the first 3 or 4 minutes of the second half. He was knocking down 3 after 3 after 3 after 3 after 3. And then you got guys like Joe Girard and Buddy Boeheim who were finally starting to play defense on top of that 2-3 zone. And you could tell that it was do or die for them. And every game from here on out is most likely do or die because their resume isn't where it needs to be right now, supposedly, to get an at-large bid. I'll throw that out there, supposedly. But if they get a couple wins here and they go up against NC State, right, like in the second round, off of that first bye, in their first game in the ACCs, they win that game, and you get a shot at Virginia. Virginia is a very defensive-minded team. We know that. Syracuse and Virginia would be a game where I would say the first 50 wins. And I don't know what happens in that game if Syracuse is playing up to their potential. Maybe they win and they pull off a shocker and boost their resume enough to where they get in as an at-large bid even if they don't win the tournament. There's also this thing with Syracuse where they're like trending downwards a lot of the season. And then at the end, they find their way into like a 9 to 11 seed line and make it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. Having been around Syracuse students and fans for the past, what's it been now? 7 months. It takes them off, but they'd rather be in the tournament and have success than not be in the tournament at all. You know what I'm saying? So Syracuse will definitely be my dark horse for the ACC tournament. In terms of the top seeds, most likely to get upset, I don't know. Like, guys, I don't, because every team in the ACC has had at least one bad loss in regards to other teams in their conference. What I mean. I'll say that Virginia and FSU should be on the lookout because FSU will have to play the winner of Louisville, led by Carlik Jones, or a Duke or Boston College team. If it's Boston College, I think FSU will be fine. Duke or Louisville, though, do present issues because you have guys like Matthew Hurt and Carlik Jones that are anchoring those teams, and role players who, on the right night, can help carry the team to victory. That's all I'll say about that. The ACC tournament is going to still be a premier watch over the course of the next week. So don't take your eyes off of it and allow yourself to be engulfed by it and watch it with intrigue, because the ACC tournament will still be one of the best tournaments, even if the quality of the teams playing in it aren't as good as they have been in the past. We'll move on, though, to the Big 12. I was losing sleep putting this into this spot in the rundown because I figured it could be put a lot later into this episode. I really did, because the Big 12 has been deep this year. It's been exciting, and it's going to be more of the same. Ariel Putterman's Kansas Jayhawks kept Baylor from the ranks of the unbeaten. Great job. Still not the number one seed, though, because Baylor is. And they'll have a relative cupcake depending on who wins that TCU-Kansas State game. If there's any conference that I could pick to be mostly chalk, as in like the higher seeds wins, it would be this one. Because the only team that I could see pulling off an upset is Texas Tech against in-state rival Texas. That's a 3-6 matchup. Matt Maczynski's favorite player to hate, Mac McClung, leading the Red Raiders. I could see them beating Texas. Will they? I have no idea. But it's a thought. And I feel like this tournament will... I could also see Kate Cunningham and Oklahoma State beating West Virginia as well. So maybe not completely chalk, but it's as close to chalk as you can get. A 4-5, those teams could really be switched. That's just how I think of it. In terms of a winner, I will go with Baylor, actually. You got to remember, they were playing Kansas off a COVID pause at Kansas. And I understand that the Big 12 tournament's usually in Kansas City, so that doesn't help. But Baylor has seen that team now. They're not coming off a COVID pause like they have been for a lot of the season. And their guys are getting back into shape. Baylor is still the best team in the Big 12. Sorry, Ari. Baylor is the best team in the Big 12. And I don't know how they'll do in the Big Dance. They're going to get there, though. And I think they'll get there with the automatic bid. And Kansas will be left to pick up an at-large bid. With that, though, we'll head into our second break. I'll give my best and worst of the weekend up next, as well as our third section of conference tournament previews, featuring, I believe, next up is the SEC. Either that or the Big Ten. If you've been keeping track, you know what's up. We'll be right back, though, on the review. Back on the review, Brendon Hodges flying solo here on a Monday. It's a wonderful day. Blue skies in Syracuse. It's going to get up to 50 or 60 degrees. And usually this is the time where everybody goes on spring break. We don't have that this year because of COVID, so it's a little upsetting that we won't get to go somewhere nice to enjoy warm weather. What that does mean, though, is that we'll all be here to enjoy time with each other and watch some college basketball over the course of the next weekend. I will say it's upsetting that we won't get to have a week of spring break to watch the first week of the tournament, because we'll be missing a lot around the 64 game because of class and stuff. And that it's the tiniest bit upsetting. Also like to tease we're hoping to do a live Selection Sunday special here at CBB Review. Keep an eye out for media on that. We're trying to figure everything out with that and how we would be able to put that into practice. But yeah, we'll go over the selection that the committee has made for the tournament, break down matchups, possible upsets, stuff like that. It's going to be great. And you'll be seeing a lot of stuff coming out in regards to the Big Dance. You've been seeing a lot of stuff coming out with just conference tournament info. Now you'll be seeing the NCAA tournament stuff come out, and that's when it gets really exciting. For now, though, I'll go ahead and give my best and worst of the weekend. And I'll start with my best, and I think it's easy to say Luka Garza had the best weekend that I've ever seen. You win a game, you're on the wooden, award watch list in the last 15 and get your number retired. Congratulations, sir. I'll leave it at that. Worst of the weekend, the Michigan Wolverines. Oh, my voice cracked there. Excuse me. The Michigan Wolverines lost to in-state rival Michigan State. Great for the Spartans, not great for Michigan going into the Big Ten tournament. They have a chink in their armor. They are vulnerable, and we'll get to the Big Ten tournament later. But they have a chink in their armor, as do many teams in the Big Ten. And I think that they have been kind of exposed to like what they don't play well against. I'll leave it at that, though, and we'll head into our next tournament preview. And I was right. It was the SEC. So, the SEC. So interesting this year. At the beginning of the year, we all were thinking Tennessee. They have what it takes to be one of the best teams in the SEC. Then they lost to Missouri, and we were all thinking, okay, there are some other players in this conference. Missouri was one of them. Arkansas was another. LSU, with Matt Majinski's favorite player, Cam Thomas, was another. Then Missouri fell off. Everybody thought Florida was going to be good. Keontae Johnson has that really scary situation, goes out. Florida doesn't get a double bye, they get one. And then Alabama, known as a football school, coming out of nowhere to take over the SEC by force. And then Missouri beat them, and we were like, oh my goodness, who's the best team in this league? And it ended up being Alabama anyway. They haven't run through the SEC, but they've been pretty darn close to doing it. And we're not even talking about Kentucky because they're an 8 seed, and we don't know what we're going to get from them. I don't think Kentucky can pull an upset in this tournament. Sorry, Steve Kirk. I just don't. I think that the second round on this is maybe one of the most interesting tournaments that we see this year. Because you have a team like Missouri who has proven that they can beat teams. I believe they beat Arkansas. I think they've beaten each of the top 4 seeds at least once this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Missouri has beat every one of the top 4 seeds at least once this year. They are a team that should not be taken lightly. Florida, not a team that should be taken lightly. But any team in the second round, minus I think South Carolina and Georgia, should not be taken lightly. In terms of who I think will be the most likely to get upset, if Alabama has an off day shooting, definitely them. I haven't watched enough LSU to know. Tennessee, really any of the top 4 get upset pretty easily. Dark horse for the tournament. This is also going to sound pretty homerish. I'm going to go with Missouri. Konzo Martin. While they do not shoot well from outside, if Jeremiah Tillman stays out of foul trouble, if they hit timely threes, not a lot, but timely threes, and if they stay connected, stay in contact with these teams with their defense, they can beat anybody in the SEC at least. Since we don't have a 3-point play, though, and I don't want to head into another break, we'll just keep it here and go to stories to start your week. And the only story that matters right now is who's going to make the big dance in these Power 5, Power 6 conferences, guys. So many teams are deserving. There are so many teams that deserve a spot, but only so many teams will get one. The story is who's going to get left out of the A10. Will we see Drake and Loyola Chicago both make it into the tournament because they both deserve to do so? Can somebody beat Gonzaga? Steal an automatic bid. Gonzaga gets an at-large bid, and it's one of those situations where a team like Drake or Loyola then doesn't get a bid. How many teams will we get out of the Big Ten? we haven't gotten to the tournament yet. As I scroll down here, there are a lot of teams that could get in from the Big Ten. Teams that have beaten other teams. Like Minnesota's the 13 seed. They've been a roller coaster this year, but they had some solid wins under their resume. They also have some really bad losses, but this is going to be probably the best year of postseason basketball ever because there's so much uncertainty with COVID, with travel, with an Indianapolis bubble, with the conference tournaments, with procedure in general. The biggest story has been all year and will be for the next month. How does postseason college basketball look in a pandemic? And what factors change how it looks as we go along? We'll finish this out with the Big Ten tournament. And this is going to be good, guys. You have Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Purdue in that order, 1 through 4. You have Ohio State, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Maryland, 5 through 8. Indiana at number 10 interests me solely because of Trace Jackson Davis. This is just going to be a great tournament. If there's a tournament you should watch this week, it is this tournament. Because, and I've said this a couple times, that teams will be trading body blows. These teams will literally be trading body blows. There are physical dudes in the Big Ten. Dudes. Kofi Coburn, big, physical. Luka Garza, big, physical. EJ Liddell, skilled, yes, but still physical. Wisconsin's identity is being physical. Purdue, and then there's Michigan, who took a lump with a loss this last weekend. So what? So what? Here's the thing. If Michigan State beats Maryland in the second round, off of that first bye, you get Michigan State all over again. All over again. And do you think Michigan's going to take them lightly a second time? Absolutely not. Michigan is the one team, I will say, in the Big Ten that can go from having an abysmal half to then having played the best half of basketball they did all year, coming off a COVID pause against Wisconsin. There's not much more I can say about the Big Ten. They have been the best basketball conference in the country this year. And that's a fact. That is why it will be the best conference tournament this year. And it's usually either the first or second. And that is also a fact. I'll pick the winners for each of these tournaments, and I won't do so lightly. In the Big East, I will take Creighton. In the Pac-12, I will go Oregon. In the ACC, I will still pick Virginia because they have been there and done that before. In the Big 12, I have already told you I will take Baylor. In the SEC, I will take I will choose LSU. And in the Big 10, I think the two teams it's sad because we won't end up with an Illinois-Iowa final. We can't. But the winner of that Illinois-Iowa game will beat whoever comes out of the other end of the bracket because those teams are just too good. I don't know. I will pick Illinois to have started at the top, crested, kind of dropped into a trough for all you math majors out there, and then peaked again at the right time. That's it for episode 21 of the review. Another edition of me flying solo on CBB Review's flagship podcast. Keep an eye out for Friday's episode. Academic schedules have made it difficult for me to make it on Fridays now. So we'll be looking for a guest host from our very well-established panel of writers. And we'll hopefully have an episode out to you this Friday. I'm sorry we didn't get one out last Friday. All of our faults. And we will do our best to make sure that doesn't happen again. For now, though, signing off here on episode 21 of the review, I'm Brendon Hodges, and we will see you on Friday. Take care.